morning, welcome back to Hannah's Knit Cottage. I'm Hannah and today we are here to talk about everything I knit in 2024. Today is December 31st, 2024. I finally felt like it was time to film. There's still one thing pending for 2024, but we'll get to that later. If you are new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Hannah. I like to talk about knitting, cross stitch, quilting, occasionally crochet, but for the most part knitting around here. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back. We're right at the 1 year mark for the first video I posted on this channel, so it's super cool to have the end of year WIT parade, beginning of year plans become kind of the yearly marker of the channel and the growth of the channel. So I'm super pleased with this year. 2024 marked a lot of growth for me, professionally and personally. Obviously the channel has grown, my skills as knitting and quilting have grown significantly, and I got married this year. So it's been a big year, definitely one for the books. As far as numbers are concerned, right now we're sitting at 30, possibly 31 items completed for 2024. But I think when you see what I did, especially in the middle of getting married, I'm pretty proud of that progress. So, all right, let's get started and go through all the projects I completed in 2024. And if you see me looking over this way, I have my laptop here just to reference all of my notes. I'm on Ravelry as Hannah072 if you'd like to add me on Ravelry. Love to be friends on Ravelry, and you can see all the projects I've done. So every year I set my Ravelry goal up for how many projects I'd like to complete in the year. The past several years, I've just done 24 projects. It seems to be an achievable number for me, and it gives me some leeway if life happens. Like, you know, you get married in a year or something like that. If you see glare on my glasses, I've tried everything with the lighting to solve that problem, so I am so sorry. It's not like this in our normal podcast episodes and shouldn't be like this in the future, but sorry. But at least the yarn will look pretty and well lit. So I have data in Ravelry all the way back to 2022. I set my goal, I think, for 24 projects in 2022, and I completed 27 projects. In 2023, I set a goal for 24 projects again, and I completed a whopping total of 37. Now, several of those were baby items, so that kind of skewed my numbers a little bit, I'm sure, because they're much quicker knits. In 2024, I kept that goal at 24. Had a feeling I might be getting married, didn't know. Then we did. We ended up getting married in 2024. So I'm grateful I kept that number low. Right now I'm sitting at 30 projects, and if I finish the last one I'll show you today, we'll be at 31 for the year. So we'll see. So starting all the way at the beginning of 2024, pulling up my notes here, our first object up is a pair of socks. This was on the bingo board, got called immediately. These are the Mayflower socks. The design is by Twin Stitches Designs. Her name is Julie. I think she goes by Julianne Knitter, or also Twin Stitches Designs on Instagram and YouTube. And the sock yarn is by Moonglow Yarn Co. I believe this is it's a 75-25 base. This is her Mayflower sock set. This was the set that came out with the pattern. Love them. I did an afterthought heel on these. I believe that's also what the pattern called for. Because my mom and I have more narrow feet, I will be able to get a second pair of these socks out of the yarn, and I think I'm going to make myself a pair and do a heel flap and gusset. But this was pair number 1. I started these on January 4th and finished them on January 25th. And this was a big win for me because it was the first colorwork sock I've done successfully that fits. It's a little tight, but it's not bad, and I took extensive notes. I normally, on a 75-25, would use a size 0. For the colorwork, I used a size 1 and kept it a size 1 all the way down the rest of the leg. I used a size 0 on the foot to make sure the foot was nice and snug fitting, and then went back down to a size 1, or went back up to a size 1 for the colorwork, and then back to a size 0 for the toe here. So what that did is, by keeping this a size 1, I knew my ribbing was knit on a size 0, so it's gonna be nice and snug. And then giving myself the extra leeway here allowed this to fit over a heel and then back snug. And this could be a little snugger because it's not fitting over a heel. So I think I finally I think I finally successfully done colorwork socks, and I'm excited to knit another pair of these and to do some more colorwork socks. So that was January, and that is item number 1. Item number 2 was also on the bingo board for last year, and I went ahead and knocked these out because they're my Broadway socks. Last year we did Cinderella for the high school Broadway production, and so I knit the Cinderella socks is what I named them on Ravelry. This is the Bibbidi-Bobbidi-Boo sock pattern by K.F. Jones of the Bakery Bears. I really enjoyed this pattern. I'm not one to like to knit pattern socks a lot just because socks to me are my easy go-to in the car. I don't have to think about. And this I did have to think about a lot more, even more so than the Colorwork socks because there's a consistent pattern going on here. And if you notice, these alternate down, so you kind of make sure they're offset. The cuff on here is really pretty. I thought these were fitting for the show. I loved them. These are in Wool Market Fibers soft sock, and this is the colorway Blue Platinum, and then this is just a silver mini that they had for sale there. This mini feels more like the 80/20 base, maybe. And then this soft sock that's the Blue Platinum feel is it's a 75/25 base. 75 Superwash Merino, 25% nylon. I started those on January 6th and finished those on February 9th. And I think the delay in finishing those 100% is due to it being a pattern sock. I remember working on it on Knit Group a lot more. I remember it taking a while. So that was item number 2 for the year. And some of these I don't have. If I don't have them, I'll put a picture up on the screen with the details for everything. Item number 3 is probably, it might be my favorite thing I've made this year, honestly. It is my Flamingo Sockhead Slouch, and it's here. I love this hat dearly. I was wearing this hat like as soon as I made it. I loved it dearly. I still do. This is Wool Market Fibers soft sock 75/25 in the colorway Flamingo. It's obviously neon pink. I love my neon pinks. The pattern is the Sockhead Slouch hat by Kelly McClure. And this hat, it's not really cold enough today for a hat, obviously, with my short sleeves. But I love this hat. I had knit a couple muscle burras before, and I struggled. I have a pretty small head, so I struggled with that they were too big, and I prefer something that's more snug on my ears. I might just wear this for the rest of the video, honestly. I love this hat so much. I could live in this hat. I started this on February 10th and finished it on March 12th. So literally, I finished the Cinderella socks the next day. I was casting on this hat. Michelle gave me this yarn. She was trying to knit, she said, a Fiberfest shawl in this yarn, and it was too bright for her. Obviously, it's not too bright for me. But I love this hat. I will wear it all the time. My students see me in this hat a lot, especially on cold mornings, and it's looking like we'll have some more soon. So I'm excited to have this. Absolutely love this hat. Pattern's great. I knit it on a US 3, which might, I don't know if that's what's called for in the pattern. A lot of times I'll size down a needle from the pattern because I'm a loose knitter. Okay, so that was object number 3. I'm not gonna wear this for the whole video because it is too warm for a hat today. I wish it was cold enough for a hat. It's December 31st. And the highs are in like the mid to upper 60s today, I think. And it's bright and sunny and it feels like spring outside, and it's December. All right, so that was object number 3. Object number 4, I do not have with me because it has already been gifted, and I'll post the picture up here. This was Chloe's scarf. So this was for Chloe. Chloe is a huge Taylor Swift fan. So what I did is I got the Mustache Yarn must match sock set in the Eras tour, and what I did is I wound I had her wound it into 2 separate matching balls. The Mustache Yarn did that for me, not Chloe. And I cast on the middle and then knit going out so that it would be mirrored on both sides. So it went in tour album order. The Eras tour yarn is what I use, so it's all the Taylor Swift albums. And each album has a colorway with a little white stripe in between to separate them out. It was really cool yarn. Honestly, if I was a Swiftie, I would totally have a pair of socks like this. It was awesome. But I didn't know how much Chloe would be into wearing hand-knit socks. I figured a scarf, it's something that would be skinny and you could wrap up in a coat pretty easy. And it would be mirrored both sides down, so it looks the same going down and matches. I started that on February 10th and I finished it on March 15th, and I was not very satisfied with the project, and that has nothing to do with the yarn. And I just freestyled this. So I cast on 45 stitches and I knit in flat stockinette, and that was what got me. I have not knit in flat stockinette in a long time. I mainly do knitting in the round. And if you don't know anything about stockinette, we talk about stockinette, it's where one side is all knits and one side is all purls. So when you knit stockinette flat, it means I knit going one way, and because I face the other way going back, I purl the other way back. When you're in a tube, it seals a tube and makes a big tube. When you're flat, because it's all the yarn is being pushed, the knit side takes less yarn, the purl side takes more yarn, and it's all on one side or the other. It's not mixed in. It tends to curl in on itself and curl in towards the purl side because the knit side has more tension than the purl side. And that's just the nature of how the stitches are made. That's with any flat stockinette. Usually you put a border on it or something. And I had done that. I put a border, put an I-cord edge on it, apparently not big enough. And it just had a tendency to curl. And you can kind of, in the photos, I was able to get it flattened out pretty well, but it just wanted to curl. And unfortunately, I was on a deadline. It was for her birthday, and it was finished for her birthday, and she did like it. But I know in the future, we're going to do it a little differently next time I make a scarf. So that was object number 4 for the year. Object number 5, I also don't have because they were gifted. It's my Nutcracker socks. And this pattern actually isn't available in Ravelry. This is the Bakery Bears 2023 Advent. Every year they do Advent where they put out a video every day. And all the way in December up till Christmas. And part of that is a knit along. And for 2023, their Advent was based off the Nutcracker. And they did socks that went through the story of the Nutcracker. If you hear chickens, I'm so sorry. Apparently he wants to be on the podcast too. Anyway, so their Nutcracker socks went through the whole story of the ballet, and I love it as a music teacher. I love the ballet, love talking about it. I love the inspiration she drew, but I had a big snag with these socks, which is why they were 2024 finish and not a 2023 finish. When I got to the heel, she did a square, I think it was like a square heel turn, and it was the second heel flap and gusset I'd ever done. So I didn't know a lot about heel flaps and gussets or how to make them fit to my foot. And I did it, went past a little bit into the gusset to see, and it just did not work. It was way too tight on my foot. It did not feel comfortable. My mother did not like it either. So I couldn't give it to her. So I had to rip out back to the heel and then redo the sock. And after all that had happened, I was still in sock 1. I hadn't cast on sock 2 even. So I just put it aside till after Christmas and then resumed it. So it was started on December 2nd of 2023, which was when the cast on was for their knit along, and it was finished on March 25th, 2024. I used Cascade Heritage yarns for that in the colorways Christmas Red, Pine, and White. Love the yarn. It seems to have held up well. I gifted them to my mom on December 1st this year. So the start of the Christmas season, I gave her a pair of Christmas socks, and I loved being able to do that. So it all worked out in the end. I didn't mind it. And that was project number 5. All right, project number 6. These are also up in the running for like my most worn knits of 2024. These are the February Yarnable colorway Love is Love, knit up as a DK vanilla sock. So I've spent this year really trying to figure out my DK weight sock sizing and what I like, and I'm really finding that I enjoy wearing DK weight socks. My feet tend to get cold, and especially in the wintertime here when it's very damp outside, you need something kind of thicker to protect your feet. And a lot of times it gets slushy around here, and I wear rain boots, and the rubber just passes the cold right to you. So if you get a nice pair of DK weight socks, it really helps the cold from cutting through. And I love these socks. I just held fingering weight double, so I had a fingering weight skein of February Yarnable for 2024. It was Love is Love. And the neons, obviously, this is just me in a sock. Neon pink, purple, blue. Love it. I wear them all the time. They're a nice sturdy sock. I ended up doing a 40 stitch count and then doing an afterthought heel. I've started playing around with doing heel flap and gussets for everything, so we'll see. But these socks fit beautifully. I wear them all the time. I have, if you want to know my exact patterning for them, there's no pattern, sorry, my exact like toe recipe and heel recipe on these, it's on their Ravelry page. But I started these on March 15th and finished them on March 28th. And I'll be honest, the majority of these, I remember we sat down to watch a movie and I think I had knit like on the first sock, I had gone all the way, and obviously not the heel, I did it afterwards, but I had gone all the way down and it was like over here by the end of a movie. It just flew. So love these. This is probably, this might be my most worn knit that I made this year. That's number 6. Oops. I went the wrong way. All right, number 7. These were not for me. These were for my husband. I went ahead and made these, and it's funny, I made these before we even got engaged, but I knew I was going to give them to him for whenever we got married. So they were on my bingo board for last year. I went ahead and made them, but I knew he wasn't going to receive them for a while. These are the Batman socks. This is yarn by Polka Dot Creek in the colorway Hero Bruce with the gray mini that comes along with it. It's a 75-25 base, 64 stitch sock, 20 rounds cuff, I think 40 or 50 rounds for the leg. I was still trying to figure out how much I could get because it was only a 50 gram sock set, and I did an afterthought heel, my normal toe recipe for 64 stitch sock. They fit him really good. I had him try them on as I was making them. I believe I did these toe up. So, but he loves them. I love Polka Dot Creek yarn. They've held up well. He hasn't worn them a ton, but he has worn them some. I will say, I think this is my only pair of Polka Dot Creek socks I made this year, which is kind of sad because I have a ton of Polka Dot Creek yarn. I'm thinking about doing like a yarn stash tour at some point next year. So if you're interested in that and you want to see like what kind of yarn I have stashed away, let me know in the comments below, please. So these were started on March 27th and finished on April 6th. They're a vanilla sock. I had a fun time knitting them. It's Batman, like how can you not enjoy that? So that was number 7 for the year. Number 8 for the year, these I was trying to use up some scraps and I was kind of getting the hankering for summer sock camp. Summer sock camp always comes at the end of May, so the crazy sock lady will start talking about it middle of April, and then I'm just ready to knit all the socks. So I needed some shorty socks. I actually don't have a lot of shorty socks, I'm finding, and I'm really wanting to wear them. I wear exclusively hand knit socks now. So, and especially I live somewhere where it gets really hot, so shorty socks are always in demand. These are Wool Market Fiber socks. I knit them on a US 0. I cast them on April 6th and finished them April 16th. It's the colorway Opal. I had some scraps of this Opal left, and then this is the leftover blue platinum from the Cinderella socks in an afterthought heel. I just did the Opal all the way down, and then the little pop of color I ran out on the bind off on this sock, so I did blue platinum here. And honestly, you can't tell that much, but it was a nice touch. Anyway, I love them. I wear them. They're pretty short. See if I have my notes. I only did 15 rounds for the leg and 10 rounds of 2x2 rib for the heel. Oh yeah, for the heel. For the 15 rounds for the leg and 10 rounds for the cuff of the sock. And they hit at a really good spot. I maybe could use just a couple more rounds on that rib to get it to stay in place, but otherwise they're the perfect socks to go with sneakers. Usually my low top Converse. So it's number 8 for the year. All right, number 9. This also is a favorite pair. Again, I was starting to go through my stash and realized that I needed to start knitting socks from stash. And these are the Jane Eyre and Rochester sock set. And I knit 2 pairs of socks out of this. This is the first pair, and I was playing around with doing a heel flap and gusset. So this is like my 3rd heel flap and gusset, and I was determined to do it. This is by Holly Press Fibers, Jane Eyre and Rochester sock set. It's a 75-25 base. I knit them on a US 0, and I used the Crazy Sock Ladies pattern, Morning Coffee. It's a ribbed sock pattern, and it calls for a 1x1 cuff, which I don't normally do, but I have to say it does go nice with this sock, and I love these. They hold up well. I love wearing them. They're nice and warm and cozy, and the rib just gives you that squish factor. Love them. I started them April 16th and finished them May 10th. And you'll start seeing like that I just do all socks for a little bit. And it's kind of what just fit the phase of life I was in at that moment. It was starting to ramp up. I had just gotten engaged. We were getting close to summer break. I was doing a bunch of spring concerts. All of the things were happening at once. The next pair is my missing sock pair. I don't know where these socks are right now. I think they got shuffled in the move, so I know they're gonna pop up. But they are, I call them the Holidays at Downton, pair number 1. I got the mini sets from Surreal Yarn that they did for last Christmas. That was the Holidays at Downton, and it was like a 12-day mini set. And then I got 2 skeins of ceramic by Surreal Yarn in their winter tonal space to go along with it. They're all 75-25 base, I believe. And I used the ceramic for the heels, toes, and cuffs, and then did the mini for the rest of the sock. I made a shorty pair of socks for myself. Again, feeling the need to have more shorty socks. I started them on May 23rd and finished them June 3rd. And I like these socks. The only problem with them is I made them a little too short. Again, I try to get them where you can't really see them sticking out of my shoe, and the problem with that becomes that then they don't necessarily stay above your shoe either, because you didn't make them above your shoe, and then they start sliding down in your shoe. So I'm learning as I go. I'm figuring out what I like. All right, and that was number 10 for the year, I believe. Yes, number 10. All right, on to number 11. And these actually are not mine. These are my mother's socks. The other pair of Holly Press fibers. So I just took the leftovers I had. I used the mini that I hadn't used in the first pair of socks. And I just did a plain vanilla sock. And I love this colorway. If you can't tell, for Jane Eyre in Rochester, she did purple for Jane, and there's a deep blue running through it, which I think of as Rochester, and then that orange is like the fire, like Bertha coming after him. I think it's beautiful. I love it. So this is my standard vanilla sock recipe. 20 rounds rib, 60 round leg, afterthought heel, 66 rounds on the foot, and then a toe. Started on June 3rd, finished on June 12th, 2024. And that's number 11 for the year. All right, pair number 12 for the year, not pair, I guess. Item number 12 for the year. These I don't have because they are living at Wool Market Fibers. By they, I mean just one sock. It's just one lonely sock. I made a sock sample for Wool Market Fibers in Michelle's new pattern. It's not new, but she did some updates to it. It's called the Bellewood sock by Michelle Krim, and I knit them in Wool Market Fibers yarn. I used pecan and forest, so had it sit in stash, and it felt like they belonged together for this pattern, and it knit up beautifully. I loved knitting the pattern. It was very easy to follow. I enjoyed knitting it. I started them on June 13th and finished the sock on June 19th, and they just needed one sock for the sample. So just one sock. I have more of this yarn, so I might make another pair. I don't know. We'll see. See what 2025 brings. And that's item number 12 for the year. Number 13, this was my biggest finish of 2024, honestly. This was the big one. I started this on March 16th and finished on June 26th. This was kind of going in the background the whole time. And we're going to have a little talk about this one. This is my Funfetti Raglan here. I'm going to have to get a better picture of it and lay it out so you can see. So, my Funfetti Raglan, I knit up in, this is Broca Vintage DK, I think in the cream. And then all of these, the pink is actually the Flamingo. That's the same Flamingo as my Sockhead Slouch here. And then the rest of these are Wool Market Fibers minis. So I had seen somebody do a neon rainbow for the Funfetti Raglan, and I wanted to do it too. This pattern is the Funfetti Raglan by Andrea Kwan. And you can kind of see in my notes that there was a struggle. This sweater almost got ripped out several times, and it's not entirely finished. There's still a ton of ends to weave in on here, and I just need to set aside a day and binge a whole season of a show and weave in all the ends on this sweater, honestly. I do love the way it fits. My sleeves are a little tight, so I might end up having to go reknit the sleeves. You can see the ends here. Has that stopped me from wearing this out of the house? No, it has not. But I love this sweater. It's very warm. I made it super long and cozy, and I didn't do a full length sleeve. I actually only did like a 3/4 sleeve here, so it hits me just below the elbow once it's on, and that means that like when I wash my hands and stuff, that it's not going to accidentally get caught. My ring shouldn't get caught on it, my watch. As I'm working, just doing things, nothing should get caught on it, especially with it being white. I didn't want it to just be prone to catch all the dirt. So the pattern. The way that the pattern was formatted, I know a lot of people have given glowing, perfect reviews to the pattern, and if it works great for them, that's great. I struggled with this pattern a lot, and I feel like I'm not a newbie. I haven't knit a ton of sweaters, but I do know how to read patterns. I was pretty proficient at reading crochet patterns before I started knitting, and I've read a lot of knitting patterns, and I'm pretty good at studying my pattern and following it before I jump in. With this one, the instructions to me were not clear on where you put your marker, and you can see that. But I have a little seam here, and it shows up worse on camera than it really does in person, which I guess is better. It shows up worse in camera than in person. But you can see my beginning of round was here when it should have been here. And it should have been right here in this raglan line, and then it follows down. You can see about here, I shifted it and fixed it, and then the beginning of round shifts to right here in the sweater. So then your seam going down is right here, and it's hidden. Which is perfect. That's where it should be. That's exactly where it should be. However, obviously it was not clear to me when I was setting up my raglan markers here. And you can see, I mean, my raglan marker technically is in the right spot here, but I didn't know that it needed to follow this line versus like where your increase needs to be, basically. Because with a raglan, this line appears because I'm increasing on either side of the stitch, and that's what creates this nice little spread here. It might be easier to see on this side. Yeah. So I'm increasing every stitch here. I'm adding more stitches, which is why you have this diagonal of where I'm growing here and I'm growing here to increase and make that nice line. So my color work needed to change rounds here across the raglan line, so then it wouldn't be as noticeable, because then your shift is hidden in the increase and not here in the front of your sweater. So I really debated ripping this out, honestly. I was at that point. There's the short rows I had to go back and redo. I think I had to redo the short rows, and they're hidden back here, which I did like that they were hidden before the color work. The collar, I want to say I picked up and did the collar later. Yeah, because this is bound off up here. I don't know. This pattern just frustrated me, and it really what it was. And some of this, I think it's a me thing and a pattern thing. I don't have the best eyesight. I just don't, obviously. So the way the words were put together, they were all kind of crunched together in the pattern, and there was a lot of instructions all shoved together about how to set this up. And I feel like especially on a pattern like this, where it's extremely important that all of this lays right, it would have been very nice to have had a video from the designer explaining it, because I was worried when I set it up. I remember being worried when I first set this up, and questioning it, trying to figure out, is this what they want? I think this is what is correct in this pattern. The rest of the pattern was fine. I managed to do it just fine. It was clear. Obviously, you know, we do our own thing. I think I did follow her sleeve decreases, but still. That is the one, like, when I look at this sweater, I think about this, and it makes me sad. And maybe I should have ripped it all back out and reknit it, but honestly, had I ripped it out, I wasn't going to reknit it, because I was that frustrated with the sweater. A lot of the instructions felt like they were clustered close together, and I could process it. It just took me way longer than I felt like it needed to break it down. but this was a killer. I mean, and there was another person I was knitting this with at the shop who ripped theirs out like 3 times and ended up not knitting the pattern. And I was sitting there right next to them trying to help them through and having my own mistakes, saying, hey, don't make this mistake that I just did. So I really feel like just a video from the designer, like walking you through setting this up and explaining how you're going to set up and showing you, hey, this is where this shoulder is going to be. This is the front, like front left sleeve, front, back, right back. And having somebody show you those markers, I think would have been very useful, or at least a diagram showing, hey, this is where your beginning of round is in relation to where the raglan line is. Raglan line being this increased line here. So, enough of a rant on this sweater. I do wear it. I do love it. It's definitely a bold piece to wear. I mean, you don't see most adults walking out just in a whole like neon rainbow on your day today. And I've worn it to work. My students, most of my students think it's pretty cool. Especially the younger ones. They think it's pretty cool. And they're like, I love your sweater. I'm like, thanks. I made it myself. I'm like, whoa. So they love it. It's cool. I love it. I'll still wear this sweater. I don't see myself ever knitting this pattern again in the future, truthfully, because of all of that. I think it left a bad taste in my mouth after everything, but the sweater has worn beautifully. I hate I made the mistakes that I did, but I think I've learned a lot and we'll keep going. So I think this was number 13 for the year. I started on March 16th and finished on June 26th. It was a long haul project. And I was flabbergasted when it was done. Anyway, so on to the next one. Now the next 4 socks I'm going to go through in pretty quick succession, because they were all gift socks, and I'll put pictures of them up on the screen while I'm talking. The first sock was started on July 1st and finished on August 1st. These were bridesmaid socks. This was from one of my bridesmaids, Chloe. And I used Stitch 'em with yarn in the colorway Old Glory. And I did round 1 of knit, round 2 knit 2 purl 2, just alternating down the sock, and gave a nice ribbed pattern. I didn't, Chloe has a pretty small foot, so I didn't know how well I didn't know how the socks would fit. I'm still learning sock fit. I think I finally got it down, but I'm just not confident in myself. So I want to do a rib sock and make sure it fit right. So that was the first pair of socks. Second pair of socks was for another bridesmaid, for Erin, and I did the Jelly Rolls by Mara Catherine Brenner and followed the pattern. I used Wool Market fibers in the colorway Flashback, and they had a fuchsia that was a solid that went with it. And so I did Flashback for the main and then fuchsia for the cuff, the top roll cuff, the heel, and the toe. I started those on June 27th and finished those August 3rd. I have to say, I didn't enjoy knitting the Jelly Rolls, I'll be honest. I don't think I'm a fan of doing the double cuff, honestly. After that, it's just a plain shorty sock. You can do different details in the rib and stuff along the arch if you want to. That's in the pattern, but I just don't like doing, apparently I don't like knitting sock cuffs. I think that's really what it boils down to, is I don't want to knit a sock cuff. All right, and the third pair was for my maid of honor, Kendra. And Kendra and I always go get sushi. So, of course, when I saw that Woolens and Nosh had a sushi sock, I bought it. And when I went to make these socks for her, I knew they had to be hers. So I started them on August 2nd, finished them on August 11th, knit them on a US, I think 00, because this was a 80-20 base. Used just plain vanilla socks, and I had some Patton's Croy in the colorway Black that I used for the heels, cuffs, and toes, because they didn't have the Wasabi Mini anymore. The green and the sushi socks, the colorway is called Wasabi, and for a while she had that as a mini. Oh well, maybe one day. I have leftovers of all of these, so I'll probably make myself a pair of all of these colorways too eventually. The last pair, these were not for a bridesmaid, but for a dear friend who I had promised a pair of socks a long time ago, but they have a larger foot, and I just put off making them for forever, and I shouldn't have. So I used Knit Picks Stroll Fingering for these in the colorway Poppy, a beautiful purple. And I did the Crunkled Socks by KF Jones of the Bakery Bears, and I loved these socks. I 100% can see how this pattern is so popular. I'm not a big fan of ribbing, but, and when I say ribbing, I'm just talking about knit purl pattern. I know there's a lot of other knit purl patterns that are not ribbing. This kind of mixes up a stockinette and a rib without going into too much detail. So you kind of have some ribbing and you kind of don't, and it creates these nice little welts, like little crunkles in the socks. But obviously I enjoyed them. I did a heel flap and gusset on these too. I was starting to play around with how to get socks fitting with a heel flap and gusset, and I started them on August 13th and finished them on August 21st. She loved them. They fit beautifully. I was really proud of myself for getting those to fit right. She has a more specialty foot size. All right, the next one I have here with me, this is another Sockhead Slouch, this time for my husband. So at this point we were getting married. I knew we were getting married in the fall, and it was getting close to time and I needed to get something. I knew I was going to give him the Batman socks, but I wanted to give him one thing that he wouldn't anticipate. And he did say I could make him a beanie one day. He's learning how to be knit worthy. He really is. He takes good care of them. I think he's afraid of not being knit worthy, as far as like afraid of not taking care of them right, which we love. This is his Sockhead Slouch, and he has, I wouldn't say he has a massive head, but he has fluffy hair. So it does take up a good bit of space. This is like a sack on me, so I'm not gonna put it on. And he wanted like a super extra slouchy hat. And he wears this hat a lot. I probably could stand to wash it and put it on a little bit of heat to get it to shrink up just a bit. I used Patton's Croy, I'm sorry, in the colorway Cowl, but it's black. It's Cowl black here. And it's the Sockhead Slouch hat by Kelly McClure. I started these on August 9th and finished it on August 28th. So this was like my good, just kind of in the background knitting. And I think this, I knew he would want it super slouchy, and that's what took it so long, is I kept just being like, okay, gotta do more and more. I mean, this thing is like literally the size of my head. It's insane. So I think I used 2 balls, 2, maybe 3, so like over 100 grams worth of sock yarn to make this hat for him. But he loves it and he wears it all the time, so it was worth it. The next pair of socks, this is my first sock design, and I'm hoping to get this out in 2025 to get the pattern written up. These were my socks for the wedding. So I got close to my wedding and I realized I hadn't knit anything for myself, and I wanted a pair of socks for my wedding because I'm a sock knitter. That's what I do. So this is my sock design. I called them Hannah's wedding socks, and forgive the purple. There was a washing accident with these. They have an Eyre partridge heel flap. So I was again doing the heel flap and gusset. I put this beautiful, this is Wool Market Fibers Blue Platinum. That's the ruffle on here. And then this is just Cascade Heritage in the colorway white that I had left in stash. Pretty stitch pattern down the front, and when it opens up, let's see if I can show you here. It creates this really pretty, it almost looks like shells or little hexagons. I just wanted something that was very sweet, almost bespoke for the wedding, and it has a nice rib down the side, so it really hugs my foot. On the way out from the wedding, I had white Converse I wore that had a little blue detail, and our colors for our wedding were white and blue. A darker blue than this, but it just fit for that bridal look, and so I wore these out from the wedding. And there's a picture of my husband helping me model my foot, model these socks at our wedding. So I love these. I started them on September 14th and finished them September 23rd. I literally finished them not super long before the wedding. So I love them. I have not worn these out since the wedding, just because I want to keep them nice and pretty. They're important to me. I will most likely, well, 100% will make another pair of these. Excuse me, that was a hiccup. I'll most likely make another pair of these very soon to write up the pattern and to play around with it. And these are the perfect socks for tennis shoes, to give you that kind of little like feminine girly flair to it, because this ruffle, I could have even stood to have made this longer. It sits right over your shoe, especially if you have like a low top Converse. It'll sit right over the top of the shoe and just give you that little extra touch of special. Alrighty, on to the next one. I do not have the next one because it's been gifted. This is the Endy Bit Scarflette by KF Jones of the Bakery Bears. Again, it was a Patreon exclusive pattern for the Bakery Bears, so it's not listed on Ravelry. it was one of their platinum patterns. So if you're a patron, I think a like silver, gold, or platinum member, you can get those. I loved it. I had originally, this yarn was on the bingo board last year to be a Bronte sister shawl, but I changed direction because I realized I'm not a shawl knitter. If you'll see, I did not finish any shawls in 2024. This is the closest thing to a shawl I finished in the year. I used Sorella yarn cashmere sock in the I Believe in People colorway from the Downton Abbey collection. Loved the yarn. Knit up beautifully. I used a US 4 like the pattern recommends. It was a great pivot because I realized that the lady I was knitting it for, I knit it for my great aunt, and she wears a lot of skinny scarves. She likes those, but she doesn't necessarily wear a ton of big shawls, and she has a big shawl. Actually, she has 2 big shawls that I've made her. So she didn't need another one. This skinny scarf serves a different purpose and it's cashmere, so it'll be nice and warm. It'll be easy to take care of for her. The only thing I had a problem with in the pattern is it felt like the bind off and cast on edge did not match. So when you lay the scarf down and you look at the 2 ends of it, they don't look identical. And I don't know if that's a me error or the pattern error, but otherwise the pattern was great. It was easy to follow, and hers actually calls for you to use like a whole advent and go through like 12 to 24 colors on it, I think. But I just kept using the same yarn, and I think I didn't even use up a full skein, but I used most of a full skein of yarn. So started on September 2nd and finished on October 17th. And I actually knit this a lot on our honeymoon. We got stuck in traffic a good bit. It was not too long after Hurricane Helene had hit North Carolina. So as we were traveling, we kind of hit some of that traffic of people trying to get supplies out there. So we were stuck in traffic for a long time, and my husband always wants to drive and I always want to knit. So it works out great. I knit a lot of this on the honeymoon and finished it on October 17th. All right, next, this is honeymoon yarn. So I cast these on October 11th. I got this yarn at Smoky Mountain Spinnery in, it's in Pigeon, no, it's in Gatlinburg. They're in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I got West Yorkshire Spinners for the first time in the colorway Robin, and I was very excited to try out their yarn, and I love it. I 100% am going to buy more West Yorkshire Spinners in the future when I've knit up more of my stash. This is the colorway Robin. I did heel flap and gusset. I believe I did 15 rounds. Yeah, 15 rounds of 2x2 rib, 40 rounds in the leg, heel flap and gusset, 76 rounds, and then the toe. And the 76 rounds includes my gusset, in case you're wondering. But I loved it. Did a standard slip stitch heel flap here on these. Love these socks. I knit them a little bit shorter so that I could get a second pair out of them, and that's actually our next finished object up. But what I did is these were a matching set that I did for my mom and I for Thanksgiving, that we got to wear matching socks on Thanksgiving. So this year we matched on Thanksgiving and Christmas. I started these socks on October 11th and finished them on October 26th. I'm going to jump ahead to my mom's pair of Thanksgiving socks since I'm talking about them. I started those on October 29th and finished them on November 19th. And they're the same thing, except I did a 60 round leg and a 20 round 2x2 rib cuff on hers. So they're a little bit taller of socks. And I used some row 1 minis, and I couldn't tell you what colors or anything on the minis, but they're knit the same exact way. West Yorkshire Spinners Robin, vanilla sock with a heel flap and gusset, just adding a little extra length and using the row 1 minis to help me have enough yarn. So started those October 29th and finished them November 19th. Next pair of socks, I did I called them Cher's Christmas socks because if you saw on the podcast, they were for Miss Cher for Christmas. I knit the Thursday Night Socks pattern by Lindsay Shank-Kirshner of Sock Witchery. It's my favorite sock pattern, honestly. I wear my Thursday night socks all the time, and I used the Wool Market Fibers colorway Splash of Love. They were a 56 stitch sock, and I did a 20 round 2x2 cuff, and then did everything else as followed by the pattern. Love them. Started them November 2nd and finished them November 14th. They were part of Socksgiving, so got those knocked out in Socksgiving. Another pair of Socksgiving socks. I started these on October 26th, right before Socksgiving, and then I finished them on November 21st. These are my husband's Christmas socks, and they have a heel flap and gusset, so he has an afterthought heel in his first pair and a heel flap and gusset in his second pair. This is the colorway Joker by Wool Market Fibers. I remember they brought this yarn in and they needed a color for it. I'm like, this looks like the Joker. This is literally the Joker's colors. And he loves it because he loves comics and all of that. So with his Batman socks, he wanted a pair of Joker socks too. His sock recipe is literally the same as mine, except his is a 64 stitch sock around versus mine takes 56 stitches around. But all the details are on Ravelry. Started these October 26th, finished them November 21st, right in the middle of Socksgiving. And really the only delay on these, I actually used these for when I was teaching a sock class. So I was following where the student was throughout times. That's what the delay was. I would just do a little bit each week so the student I was working with could keep up with me. Anyway, let's see here. We're almost to the end. The next pair of socks was also a pair of Socksgiving socks. They were DK weight from Yarnable. I used the January 2024 colorway How Time Flies, held the fingering weight double to make a DK weight pair of socks, and I made them for Miss Charlotte. And let me see here. Hers is a 40 stitch sock like mine, but her foot is much smaller, so the sock length is smaller on here. I started them November 24th and finished them November 27th. I remember I was trying to get these done right before Thanksgiving to wrap out Socksgiving. I did use a heel flap and gusset on these, which is different than the socks I made last year that were afterthought heels. We're almost through 2024. The next one, we're gonna have a lot of gifts coming up in the next couple items as I was flipping to do Christmas knitting. The next one is called Valerie's Cowl. It was made for Miss Valerie at my church, who is my secret prayer pal for 2024. I started the cowl on December 2nd and finished on December 5th because I used Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick, which is a super bulky yarn, and it was a tweed. It was the green tweed. And the pattern was Hills or Mountains, Cowl and Hat by LJM Designs, and I just made the cowl. I don't see her wear a lot of hats, so I knew I didn't really have time to do both the hat and the cowl, and I felt like the cowl was just a better idea. So that was Valerie's cowl. The next pair of socks for the year, I call them Angie socks because they're from Miss Angie. I used Wool Market Fibers Way of Kings and some Row 1 minis in a brown and a navy blue. I started them December 8th and finished them December 15th. Just did a plain vanilla sock, and you can see here throughout the year I kind of flipped and I just do heel flaps and gussets the second half of the year because I'm finding they just fit better, so everything's a heel flap and gusset now. I used a US 0 for those socks. All right, we have 3 more, and the last 2 kind of go hand in hand. Or no, 4 more. Sorry. The next object is Michelle's tablet vest. I used the Rhinebeck Doodle Cowl by Jamie Lomax to do the little colorwork chart in the middle, and all I did was just I figured out basically the size of her iPad and what I would need to give me just a little bit of negative ease to make it fit snug on the iPad, and I used a US 1 to make sure the color work was not too tight on the iPad, and I just cast on the back panel and did the back panel down to where I would want the armhole to join, and then I did 2 fronts and increased along the front to eventually join them together, then knit down to where it would join the back panel and then knit straight down. And then I picked up stitches and added for the ribbing here on each side, and then I added the rib for the little neckline here, and I did a center double decrease, so you would decrease 1 on each side and follow that center line to make the little vest. And then I just did some rib on the bottom. So basically just hacked my own sweater vest here. I might have to see if I can, now that I've done this successfully, I'm curious if I could do it for an actual person. But the tablet is flat on both sides, whereas a person, we have curves, and there's curves everywhere and lumps and bumps, so I don't know if it would be that easy. I used Hypnotic yarn in the September 2024 colorway, September 2023 colorway, Mossy Hollow. It might be August. I started December 6th and finished it December 17th. I remember I was working like a mad woman to get that done because the knit group party was on the 19th. So I knew I had to get those socks done pretty quick. All right. Objects number 29 and 30 for the year. I'm going to just discuss both of these together. These were the Cozy Knitter Advent Socks, and they were finished for Christmas. We wore them on Christmas Day. I want to say I started this pair on December 1st, my pair, and I finished them on December 22nd because I was knitting all the other gifts. Used Cozy Knitter 2024 Advent Stripe, which is an 80/20 base, and then I just used some Cascade Heritage White that I had left over to do Heel Flap and Gusset. My mother's pair, I ended up starting December 22nd and finishing December 25th. I did a pair of socks in 3 days, y'all. That was intense, and do not recommend. Don't ever do that. And these were finger weight on a US 00 because it was 80/20. So it was intense. But I'm glad I had them done for my mom. I would have felt really bad if they weren't done in time for Christmas. So they were done on Christmas Day. They were given on Christmas Day, and we wore them on Christmas Day. I will hopefully never wait that long to make those socks again. So that's 30 objects. I'm going to tentatively show you object number 31 because I think it's going to be finished today. And truthfully, I'm counting it as a finished object for 2024. Because all the knitting is done. It's just the finishing work of it that I have left to do. And if you've watched the podcast, you probably know where I'm going with this. It's the thing you've seen for months straight now. My stick season sweater. Let me grab my project page here for this. So this is my stick season sweater in the colorway Avocado. Oh, that's the back of it. In the colorway Avocado by Polka Dot Creek. In DK weight. I've used a US 2, 3, and 4, and I started this on August 22nd. So like this needs to be done. I need this off the needles for 2024. The only thing that I'm doing at the bottom is literally I am seaming up the hem. I am doing the tubular bind off on the hem. And if you've ever done a tubular bind off, you know it takes a while. I think I've put 2 hours on the bind off and I'm maybe about a third of the way done. Like it's just whew. And I did it, this calls for a 2x2 rib. So then I had to go through and rearrange my 2x2 rib into 1x1 to do the tubular bind off. So I finished the bottom hem, then did a round and rearranged the stitches, and then started the tubular bind off. It was a lot. But I'm going to sit and work on this. It's New Year's Eve today. So I'm going to sit this afternoon and this evening while we wait to ring in the new year and work on this. So this I'm counting as finished because all the knitting is done. It's the finishing work. I've done all the knitting. I know this fits. I know it'll be fine. I guess this is my second project in Polka Dot Creek yarn for the year. I bought this sweater quantity in I want to say September of 2023 because they do their sweater weather sale every September. And I bought like 3 sweater quantities from Wool Market Fibers. And this is the first one I've actually used. I'm excited to use some other sweaters quantities in 2025. So we'll see. But this is object number 31 for the year. So if you'll give me just a minute, I will be back with some calculations to give you the round out of numbers for what I've done for this year. All right, so we're back to wrap up 2024. I have all my stats totaled here, including the sweater. So for 2024, there were 31 objects completed. Out of those 31 objects, we had 2 hats, the 2 Sockhead slouches. We had 3 cowls / scarves throughout the year. And that would be the Endy bit Scarflette, the Chloe scarf, and Valerie's cowl. I had 3 sweaters, including like Michelle's vest counts as a sweater. And then we had the Avocado Stick Season and the Funfetti Raglan, and a whopping 23 pairs of socks. That means I knit 1 to 2 pairs of socks every single month this year, basically. That's incredible to me. But the stash stats are even better. So I did track how much money I spent on yarn throughout this year. We're not posting that publicly. But I also have my grams in, grams out. I did a big destash this year. I did 2 destashes. I destashed a bunch of acrylic yarn to my best friend Kendra because she's gotten into crochet and she uses it. And I knew that she would use it long before I would. And then I also destashed, I had some Halloween yarn that I really just knew I was never going to use, and I destashed that to Michelle. So this year I took in 6,430 grams. That translates to 64.3 skeins of yarn roughly, but going out I had 7,891.9 grams, which roughly, let's say 78.92 grams. So that translates to almost 79 full skeins of yarn out of stash. Right, so 70, yeah, basically 78 skeins of yarn, 78, almost 79 skeins of yarn out of stash, for a total of 1,461.9 grams out of stash for the year, which is 14, almost 15 skeins of yarn out of stash. So I think that's a huge improvement from last year. I don't know what my stats were for last year because I didn't track it last year, but I can 100% guarantee that I brought way more yarn in than I used. So I have officially gotten rid of 14 skeins worth of yarn out of stash. My stash has shrunk this year. My whip pile is the same as it was last year, and we'll get into that more in my 2025 plans video. But I call that a win for 2024, considering I got married, and I felt like I was always behind and working on a deadline. I still managed to get 2 sweaters done for myself, 23 pairs of socks. Like, that's just incredible. So I hope you've enjoyed all the stats. And here, I hope you've enjoyed looking at all the projects. If you have not subscribed, do consider subscribing. Be dropping down a 2025 plans video very soon, and there will be more knitting content throughout the year. So thank you for watching so much. If you don't mind, if you want to leave a comment, tell me what you worked on this year. What's your favorite knit of 2024 or your least favorite knit of 2024? Anyway, I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye, y'all.